Hello, and welcome to Day 5 of LEGO Robotics from Robotics for All. Today, we'll be learning about another flow control block and a brand new sensor. This block is called a switch block. Basically, it creates a fork in the road for our program. When the program gets to the switch block, it checks a condition we set. Depending on the result of the check, it executes two different sets of code, called cases. It's like a decision. This is what the switch block looks like. The switch mode, marked in the diagram by 1, is where you can set the condition. In this example, the condition is set for the touch sensor. The cases, marked in the diagram as 2, is where sets of code based on the result of the condition are put. The cases area will look different depending on which condition you set in the switch mode. In this example, 2 cases are present. The check mark and the X mark refer to whether or not the condition in the switch mode is reached. In this example, the switch mode is set to the touch sensor. That means that when the program gets to this block, if the touch sensor is pressed, it will run the code beneath the check mark. If the touch sensor is not being pressed, it will run the code beneath the X mark. Once all the code inside the switch block is run, it will continue running any code after it like normal. As we saw in the last example, sensors are the primary way we control switch blocks. We humans also make decisions based on all of our sensors all the time. Pause the video for a moment and consider what decisions we might make based on our sensors. For example, if we see that the room is dark, we will turn on a light. This is using our eye sensor to make a decision of whether turning on the lights or not. Today, we'll also be learning about a new sensor called a color sensor. The color sensor works very closely with the switch blocks. When the switch block mode is set to the color sensor, we can write code depending on which color is beneath the sensor. The area marked as 1 is where you can select which sensor port the color sensor is plugged into. The plus button, marked as 2, is where you can add new cases. This is an option unique to switch block modes like the color sensor. When you add a new case, you can select a new color to be associated with that case, allowing you to have code specific to multiple colors. The area, marked as 3, is where you can change the case value. In the color sensor mode, it is where you can set what color is associated with that case. The small, empty, or filled circle beside the case value, marked as 4, is where you can designate a case to be the default case. The default case is the case which is run in the absence of input, or, in this mode, when the color beneath the color sensor does not match any existing cases. The filled-in circle means that this case is set as the default one. This is a lot to take in, but once you see it in action from this program, it will become a lot clearer. Here I am inside the LEGO Mindstorms software. We're going to write a program which only drives forward when the color sensor sees blue, otherwise it will be stopped. First, let's open a blank project. We're going to start by adding a loop block into our project, and this will be set for unlimited loops. Then, we're going to put a switch block inside of our loop block. So, we're going to drag the switch block in from the second tab in the flow control menu, and there you go, now it's inside of our loop block. Now we're going to change the mode of the switch block to be color sensor. So you go click on this menu here, color sensor, measure, color. Now you can see our switch block has changed to the color sensor mode. At this point, you can verify to make sure you have the correct port marked on your color sensor switch block. Next, we're going to set the top case, which is currently set to black, to blue. So we're going to click on this, move down to blue, and there you go. Now we're also going to make the bottom case the default case by clicking this little button here. If you recall, the default case is the case that's run in the absence of any input, or in the case of the color sensor block, when the color beneath the color sensor is not one of the cases. So in this case, if the robot sees blue, it's going to execute any code we put here. Otherwise, meaning if it sees any other colors, it's going to run the code down here. We want it to drive forward when we see blue and stop when it sees any other color. So we're going to start by grabbing 2 move tank blocks from the action menu and putting them into each case. Okay, now we want our program to drive forward when we see the color blue. So instead of making it drive for a certain number of rotations, we're going to change it to be on. This means a robot's just going to drive forward forever until it's told to stop. These speeds are fine. Next, we want to set the bottom move block to be off. That means it's going to stop the robot. If you look at the behavior of this switch block inside the loop, you'll see that it's going to repeatedly check the color sensor and continually update whether or not the robot should be driving here or stopped here. And you notice that because this is the default case, as long as it's not seeing blue, it's going to keep the robot stopped. But as soon as it does see blue, it's going to start driving the robot forwards. Now begin working through the other activities for today, and don't be afraid to ask your teacher for help.